Now, after a simple fall from her bike in Dublin in 2014, Linda Collins suffered a traumatic brain injury, and it took the Cork woman over 2 years, nearly 2.5 years, to get back to full-time work.
Now, Linda is determined to help others in the same boat by talking about how she recovered. And she joins us this morning along with Dr. Karen Foley from Acquired Brain Injury Ireland. You're both very welcome to the programme. And Linda, it is great to see you doing so well. You said you are 95% recovered,
yes.
but it'll be 4 years on the 31st of July of this month since you fell off your bike, very simply cycling into work one morning in Dublin.
Yeah, exactly, on Camden Street of all places, but yeah.
So what exactly happens?
So I was just cycling down the street and I kind of heard a little bit of a rattle and I was like, what is that? I was slowing down anyway because I was coming to traffic lights, and the next thing, a screw popped out of my bike, my mudguard jammed my wheel and I just went flying over the handlebars.
You were wearing a helmet?
Yeah, I was just about to say, luckily I was wearing a helmet. I landed directly on my head. I literally didn't have a cut, a bruise, like I looked perfect. And yeah, I just got up. I was outside a bike shop. I put my bike into the shop. I was like, I don't want to see it again. Walked to work because I was kind of like, yeah, look, I think I'm okay. And I got in and I was talking to my colleagues. And I just felt funny. And I just, I didn't have a cut or a bruise. So I was like, I must be okay.
And did they notice anything, your colleagues?
So they did, and they were the ones who were like, you need to go and get checked, because there was one point I turned around and I was my manager was talking to me and I was just staring at him. I was like, I could see his mouth was moving, but I had no idea what he was saying. So I was like, yeah, okay, maybe I need to go. So yeah, I left and got checked.
And thought, I presume, that you just had a concussion, a very mild concussion, and it would pass.
Well, they did say it was a severe concussion at the time, and you know, I just kind of laughed. Like, I actually laughed. Like, and I was like, oh, look, you know, I'll be grand. A couple of days. It's the August Bank Holiday weekend. I'll go home, see my parents. I'll be fine. And I just wasn't getting any better. Like, noise was driving me crazy. I felt so sorry for my parents that weekend because I was giving out about the kettle boiling. I was giving out about cutlery going onto the table. Everything was driving me crazy. So I suppose as the weeks went on, I just realised it was more severe. And over time, I got referred to National Rehabilitation Hospital in Dún Laoghaire and got diagnosed with a mild traumatic brain injury.
So how else was it impacting on your life then, Linda? You talked there about, you know, not being able to exactly comprehend what people were saying to you, and noise being a factor.
Yeah.
But it was obviously more severe than that because you did eventually have to give up work.
Yeah, so noise was a huge thing. Like, I just had a constant pain in my head. Like, people talk about headaches, but this was a constant pain. Like, to me, headaches come and go, but I had a pain in my head all of the time. I was exhausted and I was extremely emotional. I would cry every day for no reason. Sometimes because I was probably just so tired and I didn't understand what was happening to me. But yeah, they were probably the main things, like just fatigue. I couldn't concentrate on anything.
You couldn't think clearly.
Yeah, I found like there was times where I'd be at work, I'd be looking at my at my computer screen, and it was like all of a sudden I just wake up and go, I have no idea why I'm looking at this part of the screen or what I'm doing or why. So
When you were checked out, they obviously would have known what part of your head, your brain, was impacted.
Yes.
What part of the brain that was impacted, what did it control? Or?
So for me, it was my emotions and my concentration. Now, you will probably know more about this than I will, but they were the two kind of main parts of my brain that were affected. So I suppose from concentration, it was like my cognitive ability to think and multitask, and I would have done a lot of work with my OT and rehab on that to improve it. And then I suppose my emotions, as I said, like I could cry every day. For no reason. So
But you were at least you were functioning. It was the grace of God that it wasn't something that, say, maybe governed motor skills or something
exactly.
like that.
I was really, really lucky. You know, there was, like, I did struggle a little bit with, like, short-term memory in the beginning, but, like, only very minor. I was really lucky. It didn't affect my balance or anything like that.
Was your speech affected?
It was, like, the majority of the time it was perfect. But when I would have a really bad day where there was loads of things going on, there'd be noise, like I'd have a really bad pain in my head. There was just too much going on for my head to process. I kind of had, I call them episodes, but it was like an out-of-body experience. It's really weird, I sound crazy, but it was almost like I was looking down on myself and I knew people were talking to me and I knew there was things going on around me, but I didn't know what that was, and I knew I needed to get out of the situation, but I couldn't get any words out of my mouth. I'd just be kind of going.
So
And,
were
like,
you frightened then, Linda, in yourself?
terrified? Yeah. But no, do you know, I suppose after the first couple of times I realised that, and I started to practice mindfulness, which really helped with this, I realised that I just needed to relax, take deep breaths, remember that I will recover from it. I just need to take a few moments to myself, and then I would just...
And what was the prognosis for you at that point? What were the doctors saying to you, those within the rehab units?
This is the thing. There is, you just don't know, because everyone's brain is so different. I mean, they were like, you could be better in 2 months. It could take 2 years. You may have this forever. Like, you really just don't know. And I think a lot of, like, your recovery is what you put into it. Like, I was really determined to get better, so I think I'm really lucky to be 95% of the way there after 4 years.
That's a good cue to bring in the doctor and do some of the science. But Karen, I noticed when we said concussion, and we kind of said it almost, I won't say dismissively, but just a concussion.
Yeah.
I saw you kind of bristle a little bit because a concussion is a brain injury.
Yes, absolutely. And it is, and people say, oh, it's only a mild brain injury, but a mild brain injury can have a huge impact on somebody's life, and you can see that from Linda's story very clearly.
A brain bruise, somebody described it on here before.
Or sprained brain, it's often referred to as. But essentially, a concussion can happen when you have a bang to the head, and obviously the bang will cause the brain to move within your skull. And could cause tearing and bruising and so on. Or it could happen as a result, you know, like in sporting injuries, there doesn't even have to be a bang. It can just be a sharp movement, a bang, a tackle or something like that. So, but that causes damage to certain parts of the brain. It could be the front, but also if your brain moves forward, it moves backwards. So it could also be the back as well, depending. You know, the brain moves laterally and front and back.
And yet, when people, I think of brain injuries or a person suffering a brain injury, they think of the more severe forms all the time. They think of somebody, you know, having to...
Who has lost all mobility, who can't speak.
And who's gone into the National Rehab Centre for maybe a long period of time and is literally learning everything from the basics. And that's possibly one of the dangers, isn't it? Because
it is, and a lot of people
you didn't see any outward signs of any injury at all.
Yeah, exactly.
If you had ignored that, God only knows what could have happened.
Well, if you ignore the symptoms of a concussion, I mean, the brain, there's something happening within the brain. It could be swelling, there could be bleeding, and that will become worse over time. So if you do have symptoms such as loss of balance, incoherent speech, slurred speech, dizziness, so on, vomiting, nausea, you know, that's a huge red flag that shouldn't be ignored. There is signs of a concussion, and immediate medical attention should be sought because there's something going on within your skull. The brain can only expand a certain amount. It's within a closed space.
It is amazing, Karen. All head injuries or concussions have the potential to be bleeds. Now, a bleed then becomes a hemorrhage. Now, you say brain hemorrhage to somebody, and they suddenly think worst case scenario, and it's a hair's breadth between the two.
Yes, yeah.
So why is one not taken as seriously as it and the other is?
I think just culturally we haven't paid as much attention to concussion, and it's only as our knowledge around concussion and the impact that it can have, maybe not necessarily immediately for some people, but repeated concussions then over time have been linked with increased risk for dementia and so on in later life. So I think our knowledge is growing around concussion, and we realise now that having concussion or repeated concussion and not supporting players and supporting people to mind their head.
But we're learning pretty quickly, I think, because of the way sports react to it
Yeah.
and how seriously they take it.
Yes,
because
that has helped a huge amount in terms of bringing awareness to concussion and the seriousness of it. And all the symptoms, just to say, Linda's description of how her concussion has impacted her, they're very normal symptoms, that sense of being completely overwhelmed by all of the information and noise and colour and everything that your brain is absorbing all the time. Your brain is not able to cope, it becomes overwhelmed so quickly, which will result then in...
The potential for this to happen
Yeah.
is probably greater than any other injury that could happen to any of us, because so many of us are involved in some form of activity or sport. There'll be 100,000 kids or more playing sports, hurling, football, rugby, whatever it is this weekend. Any one of them running into somebody else at speed, or even not at speed, can have this happen
Yeah,
to them.
now the benefits of sport
Far
are
outweigh
huge.
the
Yes, absolutely. So it's not to say don't play sport, but and you're right. I mean, the statistics will say 1 in 3 will experience concussion before 21 years of age. But it's I suppose, to get the message that people need to mind their heads, so that to be aware of the symptoms of concussion, that withdraw the player, you know, if there is any fall, such as in Linda's situation, and a bang to the head, seek medical attention, don't take the risk, because as you can see,
a brain injury.
it's a brain damage. Damage has happened to your brain, and if
And you
if
can
broke
recover, I suppose,
Yes.
as Linda, you have said this morning, you're 95% there. And one of the things you felt really did help you was exercise, wasn't it? It helped you in many aspects of your life, some might say.
Yes, like I've always been really into fitness and exercise. But I suppose after my injury, I just found that when I was having a really bad day, to go for a run really helped. And then I kind of felt I wanted to get back into the gym, but there was a lot of stuff, you know, again, it's just part of the whole, you know, too much movement in front of my eyes. It was too much for my brain to process. So I said I'd get a personal trainer. And I just went through the website, found this person. And when I met Noel, I worked with him for 12 weeks. And I suppose together we kind of realised what could work and what didn't work for me. And I found that, you know, exercise has helped me so much.
That looks a bit more like
I was just going to
a personal trainer relationship, can I say?
We got on really well.
And are still getting on really well?
Yeah, so 4 years later, here we are.
So there was a silver lining for you. I mean,
Yeah.
because it was very difficult, I'd imagine. You went from working full-time to going down to work 8 hours a week, thinking that your career was going to be really
Yeah,
compromised.
absolutely. And
not sure what your future was going to be, I take
Yeah,
it.
you know, like I had to stop working completely for a while. I had to be deemed like okay to work again. It took me so long to get back working. Luckily, I had Noel all the time there to help me. But yeah, like it was really hard. And for someone so young, you're just kind of going, is this going to be the rest of my life? Will I ever work full time? Like, why do I bother going to college? Will I have a career? So, you know, to be able to be here and to be working full time, it's amazing. It's
Okay,
great.
well, listen, it's
be in
lovely
love.
to see you, and
Yeah.
long may it continue for you. The message here is take concussion seriously, because if you don't, you might not have the happy ending that Linda did. Karen and Linda, thank you both very much
Thank
indeed.
you.
We'll take a break now, so you can join us for more Ireland AM shortly.